I'd like to now invite to the stage Katie Maloney. Katie is the Partnership Manager from RSL Queensland. Will you welcome Katie to the stage?
Hi everyone. As stated, I'm Katie Maloney from RSL Queensland, and before I begin, I just wanted to take the time to thank First Brigade for the opportunity to be here today, to be able to not only listen to today's human performance conversation, but to be able to contribute to it. We really value the opportunity, so thank you. I also just want to call out that today, it's not just myself from RSL Queensland here. We are joined by our Defence Manager, Kristen Kennedy, our Veteran Services Marketing Manager, Hannah Cook, and also the General Manager of all the service delivery teams of RSL Queensland, Graham Alley. So if you have any questions after today's presentation, because I am going to do a bit of a deep dive into RSL, please come see and speak to us later and use the time to understand more about how RSL Queensland can help you in your careers. So let's get underway, because I understand that I'm the person that's standing between you and lunch, and the first thing that I want to do is address the conversation or the question that you might be having, which is, why is RSL here supporting a current serving initiative, and why is it RSL Queensland? Travelling up to Darwin, I thought about different ways to answer and respond to that question. Some of you may be aware of RSL. You may have actually utilised some of our other services from other states, or in fact from RSL Queensland. We are a really complex organisation with a long and rich history, as is most organisations that have been around for 104 years. But for today, for the time that we have, that detailed history, it just doesn't matter. The message that I want to land with you all today is that all those years ago, RSL was established for you, for your families, to support your serving careers and your civilian lives. And we have evolved since 1916 when we were established. A lot of you may not be aware that, for an example, RSL Queensland, we're a team of 450 to 500 paid staff, and we deliver a world-class art union that actually funds all the charitable services that we deliver. That makes them free of charge for the ADF community and their families. We are also becoming experts in health promotion and wellbeing services. So the point I'm trying to make, if this is the couple of key messages that I want to land from today, and if this is all that you hear, we are more than just a community group that may be able to help you when you leave Defence, and we are a resource for you to support your current serving careers. You just need to be enabled and empowered to reach in and use us. We are a tool for you. So, to get this message to stick today, I wanted to cover off how we work with First Brigade, and in actual fact, how we work as Defence at a macro level. I wanted to walk through our service portfolio, and yes, we'll have a focus of the services that are currently available here in the top end, but again, to talk through how RSL Queensland might be present in the north, I will actually go through our entire domains of functioning. Again, sticking with the theme of today of human performance, I wanted to talk through our services under an evidence-based approach and talk through our capability as our point of difference. And finally, also importantly, how to actually connect in with these services. That's very important. And finally, I wanted to touch on Mates for Mates. Now, some of you may be familiar with Mates for Mates. They are what you want to call our sister entity, but just think of them as our clinical recovery unit. And they actually have operations here in Darwin, out in Palmerston. They have been deployed to deliver the DVA wellbeing centres, and their footprint will continue to grow in the Northern Territory, as alongside RSL's, over the coming years ahead under that DVA contract. So, to get underway and how we actually work with First Brigade. Some of you may be aware, or you might not be aware, that we've actually had a contractual partnership with First Brigade since 2019, and it has been built on a relationship with 3rd and 7th Combat Brigades. So why does RSL actually support the 3 combat brigades, or in fact, why do we engage in defence initiatives? And that's because we're taking we also factor on human performance initiatives of defence. And that's because we're taking a proactive or a preventative reading of our objects. As you can imagine, the objects of the League, the reason that we are established, was written 104 years ago. So the language in those objects mirror that era. It's all about vulnerable, destitute, and needy. As I mentioned before, and I'll continue to mention throughout the presentation, the organisation has evolved, and spend a lot of money and resources in funding different activities to enable resilient soldiers and resilient serving families. Some of the examples of how we supported 1st Brigade just over the last 12 months are up on the screen, and these are initiatives that we have either funded or partially funded that you may not be aware of. As you can see, there's a focus on cognitive and physical resilience activities for this base. Now, I'm also mindful today that we're joined by members outside of 1st Brigade and by surrounding bases, and I just want to pause for a second to confirm that we spoke with Brigadier Foxall yesterday about how can RSL Queensland extend our service support into these other bases, to which he was quite excited by and will help facilitate some introductions and navigate that service expansion for us for 2023 and beyond. So, in addition to, I guess, that was a very, very quick snapshot of how we support defence at a macro level with a focus on our 3 combat brigades. And if you think they sit under a human performance contract, but that also has now led to what we call compensation service level agreements, and also enables us to deliver family engagement initiatives as a subset of that contract. And I'm just going to touch on those 2 items very quickly right now. That's just to call out that we are now offering compensation services based on defence requests on Robo Barracks, and they will be stationed out at the drop-in centre in the months to come. It hasn't been opened yet. But for those members who aren't stationed at Robo Barracks, we also have compensation advocates already operating in Palmerston out of Mates for Mates. Actually, I'm just going to add one more key takeaway message from today's presentation, and that is just to drill home. Please don't wait until the point of transition to put your claims in or to start your claims process. It is commonly reported about the claims backlog, and whilst DVA are working extremely hard to clear it, the process can sometimes be lengthy and it can be stressful. We can't have any more research highlighting the point of vulnerability in every serving member's career when you discharge from Defence, and there will be a time that you transition from the Australian Defence Force. You will be possibly relocating, possibly interstate, and you're learning to separate from not only a job, but a way of life, and trying to find your feet in your next career. That's all I'm going to touch on about transition today, but why add the claims process and sometimes the stressful and lengthy process into that? You're just doing yourself a disservice. So please start the process if you have the claims to submit. So finally, touching on our family engagements very quickly before I have a bit more internal look into RSL Queensland. This is just to be really transparent with you. The reason why we're really excited by doing unit and family engagements is actually to speak to your spouses and to speak to families. We have created a number of services specifically for spouses because we are here to support your families. We want resilient current serving families. And this allows us, when we have these direct engagements, it allows us to build trust, build relationships, and it actually allows us to stop trying to communicate family messages through the current serving community because you're all very busy, you're often away on operational deployments and exercises. So, now looking more internally at RSL Queensland, and I can't start this process without, again, looking at our point of difference, and that's our investment into research. Since 2012, RSL has committed $20 million into veteran health research. And this has been done through Gallipoli Medical Research Foundation. They are a dedicated veteran research institute and a health promotion charity. Of that 20 million, 14 million is into pure research investigation, and 6 million is about health translation, which we've heard from a number of speakers today talking about the importance of health translation. It's, in short, research in action, not letting research just sit on shelves, and it's allowing us to turn it into research-informed products. These clinical investigations are really important to us to ensure our service suite are appropriate to address the needs of the veteran population. This timeline is one that I'm not going to go into detail today because it's actually the start of the general research presentation that I do. That's about 2 hours in length. But all I'm trying to call out to you today is RSL Queensland's reliance on clinical research to shape our service suite and the approach to our service delivery. There is a lot of data and science that goes into trying to identify the right service at the right time in your defence journey to have optimal impact. So when we talk about how it supports not just our service creation, and also around our services approach. So this is a quick state of play of what it looks like to enter into the RSL Queensland Service Network as of today. And again, I also call this out not just to highlight how research informs this approach, but also to be really transparent with you that if you were to enter the RSL Queensland network, this is what you'll experience, or if you were to refer a friend or a peer into our network. Generally, most people enter our service network through filling out an EOI on the website. It's pretty standard. From that EOI, you then will receive a client services agreement. Now, this is something that we actually established we implemented a couple of years ago. And a CSA can sound quite scary, but think about when you go to a bank and you set up a bank account with Westpac, you get something called a PDF, a product disclosure statement, and it outlines to you the terms and conditions of that account, what the bank expects of you and what you can expect of the bank. That is literally the left and right of arc of the client services agreement. It is not binding you into the RSL Queensland services, but is letting you understand what the conditions of those services are. From here, from your EOI, basically what happens when the CSA is signed, the system triggers someone in Graham's team to actually pick up the phone and make an appointment with you, depending on where you are, or in the Northern Territory or in Queensland. Now, what happens simultaneously to this is, again, using data and research, we previously to doing this thing called a general intake and assessment, we had all this wonderful DVA data talking about the comorbid conditions and the breadth of need in the veteran population, whether it be low need or high need. But when we looked at our research and our data, we had 1 client to 1 service ratio. So in a really brief way to talk about the general intake and assessment, it's us saying, do you want fries with that? It's an optional survey, goes for a couple of minutes and allows us to understand your service preference or your lifestyle conditions to see if there are other services that we can deliver free of charge through to you. If you accept that you would like to learn more about those services, a service plan is generated. You don't have to do anything else. Again, the system triggers wider communications to Graham's team, and then the relevant team members will be in contact to talk through your eligibility. Now, when I talk about the state of play, this is what it looks like today. And this is really, it's a good try ribbon. It is definitely not the gold standard of where we want the general intake and assessment to go. And we'll be using our GMRF research, we'll be using the census data and the data analysis of our own CRM, because what I really hope for this is when I'm standing here in 12 or 24 months' time, that we can actually talk about service promotion. We actually understand the different services or the combination of services that have the best impact for you at different time points in your defence journey, but also considering your lifespan, where you are, whether you're single, whether you have a family, whether you're MWDU. So over time, we will get smarter with the way we deploy our services through to you. And again, it shouldn't just be RSL Queensland. There's a lot of ex-service organisations and community partnerships or community partners here in the NT that can help you in your recovery or can help you in strengthening your civilian career or your serving career. And so what we need to do is help you navigate those systems. So again, we want to get to a point or a utopia in years to come where you fill out a survey from RSL and we can actually connect you to all the different vetted services that can support you. But again, that's our future state of years to come. So doing a bit more of a deep dive into our services. Now, I removed a slide and I'm now kicking myself for it, but in essence, what I wanted to call out before we go into our cornerstone offering is to actually talk about, again, how research and data in the spirit of service performance has informed our service menu. It's not just because we wanted to create that service or we thought it was a good idea. We now deliver our services using the domains of wellbeing, the Australian Institute Health and Wellbeing, DVA adopted the same, Wheel of Wellbeing. In essence, we now deploy services under housing, social connection, justice and legal, education, health and employment. But for today's presentation and for the time that we have, we're just going to focus on those that are available here in the top end. So, starting with our cornerstone offering, the compensation services, I really hope that you are already aware that RSL Queensland can support you in your compensation service or submitting your DVA claims. On the screen here, you're going to see some strength in numbers of what I'm trying to show with our capability. We have 65 paid staff across Queensland and the NT just to deploy compensation services. They are level 1 and level 2 advocates, or in training to be level 1 and level 2 advocates. Simply put, that means they can actually navigate the DVA system and put your claims in. We also have 6 to 7 level 3 advocates, and that assists us in the claims appeals process. Again, that might not mean much to you, but when we talk about making sure we have service performance, when you put your claims in, it's a really good question to ask whoever your advocate that you choose, whether it's RSL Queensland or another advocate, what are your qualifications? And again, someone like RSL Queensland, you'd expect them to see ATDP tip training has been completed and that they go through a quality assurance process. The other thing I want to call out today is the difference between a DVA Veteran Support Officer, I think they were formerly known as OBAS, but your VSOs, and the RSL Queensland Compensation Advocates. Both services will allow you to gain support in navigating claims, but the RSL advocates can actually put the claim in on your behalf with your input. The VSOs are experts in giving advice and a great resource for really straightforward claims. They can assist you through the My Service process. But I would suggest maybe for those claims that you might have held on to for a few years or at your point of transition, or for those complex claims, seek out the services of a qualified compensation advocate. Yes, also how to connect. So whilst we are getting the drop-in centre set up at Robertson Barracks, you can also access our services, as I said, through the Mates and Mates facility at Palmerston and through the details on the screen. I'm going through these slides quite quickly. If you don't have time to take down that number, at the end of the presentation you'll have our contact details and you can reach in there. So moving to our wellbeing offering. This covers off the services of emergency financial aid and oversight of the Veteran Homelessness Program that we deliver in partnership with the Salvos. Distinct to our other service deployment, the wellbeing team are actually trained to use a strength-based case management approach, and they refer clients into specialty services as required. You may be surprised that current serving members need our wellbeing program, particularly the emergency financial aid, from time to time, and that's why I'm going to talk through it now. It is a smaller amount, but it does occur. So, in the lens of current serving requiring these services, these must be accessed through DMFS, or formerly DCO. And the reason that we do that is because it's generally a unit welfare officer or a unit commanding officer that is supporting a member in time of high need or urgent need. And so what we don't want to do is get in the way. We don't want to duplicate a resource that's already existing in defence, and we also don't want to have multiple lines of communication that might accidentally add more stress. So if you're supporting someone who would require urgent emergency financial aid, please reach out to the unit welfare officer who can access us through DCO. So turning to our vocational services that are now available here in the North, and this is through our RSL employment program. So on the screen, you'll see the components of the employment program. The part that I want to talk to is the fact that what I guess is not really called out or highlighted is we don't treat all veterans as a homogenous group. So when you come through to the employment program, there'll be an additional intake process that is undertaken, and it will identify your needs, roughly broken up into lane 1, 2 and 3. As an example, lane 1 might be that you've separated from defence, your defence qualifications match civilian qualifications, and you're just a little bit rusty on resume writing and interview skills, so you might be put into the lane 1 column. Lane 2 might be those who've medically separated, and they no longer can fulfil the same duties that they were in defence, or that their defence qualifications aren't recognised in Civvy Street. So they might need some recognition of prior learning and some higher education. So they move through to the lane 2 bucket. The next part of this program that I want to talk through is that the fact that yes, it's tailored, but it also allows pathways into employers. And this is an area of the program that will continue to evolve and mature. But again, right now in Darwin, we actually have local opportunities here, including, for an example, like a couple of construction companies. And this program is open to transitioning members, but also really importantly to partners. And I probably should park that now with regards to Whilst our relationship, our contractual relationship is with 1st Brigade, all of the services that I've referred to around advocacy services at Mates and Mates, employment services, and what I'm about to push on with our sister service in scholarships, they're available to all current serving members in the Northern Territory. And in particular, the RSL employment program, it's actually available to spouses. So, talking about our sister program, the scholarships, scholarships are valued up to $12,000 for up to 3 years. We actually introduced this program in the NT based on Defence asking us to come over and support 1st Brigade, and it was part of our wider package. This was because we were identifying that a lot of families were going MWDU, and so we're trying to make the area a little bit more attractive for families to come to, and for those spouses who were making the trip up to Darwin, noting it's a regional town, there is some employment concerns. So this is where we're looking at introducing the employment program and scholarship program open to partners in the Northern Territory. I would encourage you, if anyone is interested in learning more about the scholarship program or for your spouse, the 2023 round is now open, so now is a really good time to learn more and understand if your spouse would be eligible. So please direct them to the RSL Queensland website. So to conclude the presentation today, I wanted to highlight the services completed by Mates and Mates. As mentioned at the top, think of Mates and Mates as our specialist recovery unit, those who do clinical rehabilitation for those who are impacted by service. And unfortunately, our representative from Mates and Mates couldn't be here today, but she has confirmed the services that are currently available now through the centre open at Palmerston, and that's listed on the screen. The main call out I want to make about Mates and Mates is that this service suite is certainly going to evolve as we look to do our 2-site strategy, which means we'll be opening a second service site in Stewart Park. And again, it'll be co-location of RSL Queensland and Mates and Mates. And Mates and Mates are the ones that are delivering for the DVA contract. The other area of interest to you will be that Mates can package their services so that they can support groups such as those who are transitioning from soldier recovery centres, but they also can be an adjunct to you to support you if you've experienced an injury to get back to optimal strength. So again, I encourage you to use the phone 1300 462 837 and actually inquire with Mates and Mates about how they might be eligible, how they might be able to support you. Again, because of the RSL Queensland relationship with Mates, these services are free of charge. So that concludes the formal presentation around the RSL Queensland Service Suite. I hope that's helped provide context to our involvement in human performance and the value we see in initiatives such as these, supporting and building resilient and current serving members and their families. Again, if there's no other takeaways, it's just to reiterate that RSL has been established for you, for your families, and for your current serving lives and your civilian lives. So please explore ways that we can work together and use today to come introduce yourself and understand more about the service suite. Thank you very much for your time.
Would you mind sharing, I guess for our online viewers, a bit of a snapshot to that service delivery and some of the veteran hubs that RSL Queensland is supporting in some of our other defence regions across Australia?
So yes, I can, but it's mainly there's the veteran wellbeing centres. There's the ones that are supported by DVA, and RSL Queensland's relationship with those DVA wellbeing centres are just here in the Northern Territory. So that's with Palmerston and with Stewart Park that I referred to. You might hear about RSL Queensland talk about wellbeing centres. We did put a tender in for South East Queensland, and we weren't successful in that tender. However, it actually might be for the betterment of veterans because Lives Live Well have received that support and they can deliver clinical services as well. And RSL Queensland, we're still moving ahead with our service centre at Stafford Road. It will also be opening in May 2023. But I think what I might be hearing is there a way that we can share information about what does an aligned service model look like across these centres and these hubs? And I would say that we're in our early stages of collaboration. DVA is still working with us around what does success look like across these hubs and what does the future of them look like? And I think what I can call out is, again, you can probably tell a large love for research, that Gallipoli Medical Research Foundation will actually be doing the evaluation for Stafford Road to understand that combination of services that actually have the most impact when utilised out of a centre, and how best we should engage people into that centre, whether it's just for the transitioning cohort that have the most impact, or those who have been out for a long time, or their families. And we will be sharing that information with the DVA centres nationally. Does that help? Yeah, perfect. Thank you.